On May 18, 2004, a 49-year-old woman named Christine Woelk disappeared in the small town of Leamington, Ontario, on the shores of Lake Erie. She was a Leamington District Memorial Hospital cook for 14 years at this point and had two daughters named Melissa and Laura. That day, she worked her shift at Leamington District Memorial Hospital before going to a friend's house on Oak Street in Leamington. According to reporting at the time, the same evening that she disappeared, she was going to complete the purchase of a new home. She had also made plans to watch American Idol with family that weekend. After Woelk spent time with her friend that evening, she walked to her car, a 1997 Pontiac Transport minivan that she parked behind Leamington Motorsports. She was last heard from at 8:30 p.m. on the night of her disappearance, when she was talking to her friend on her cell phone in her minivan. This phone call ended abruptly, which worried Woelk's friend. Woelk was then last seen in her minivan, driving west on Oak Street in Leamington, Ontario, around 8:35 p.m., arguing with a man in her passenger seat. This man has remained unidentified up to this day. By the next day, on May 19, 2004, she was reported missing by her family. 2 days after that, on May 21, 2004, the police found her minivan on Point Pelee Drive on the way to Point Pelee National Park. This national park is the southernmost point of mainland Canada and leads out into Lake Erie. It's well known in Canada for hosting birders from across the world, as it's a popular place for bird photography during the bird migration season. Inside Christine Woelk's minivan, the police found a broken pair of glasses on the floor of the driver's side. The glasses had one lens popped out near the gas pedal, and there were signs of struggle within the car. 6 days after Woelk was reported missing and 1 week after she was last seen, her body was finally discovered on May 26, 2004. She was found on Black Willow Beach inside Point Pelee National Park by a park visitor at 9 a.m. of that day. The Leamington police constable at the time, Kevin O'Neill, later said in a public statement that there was no definitive cause of death and no DNA or fingerprints. Robbery and SA were ruled out, and her body was found on the beach, still clothed. Despite the signs of struggle within the van, the police didn't immediately rule it a homicide. On June 1, 2004, over 400 people attended the funeral of Christine Woelk at the Leamington United Mennonite Church. Mennonite Christianity is quite popular in the southern region of Ontario, with several Mennonite communities living around Leamington. It seems that this senseless murder had caused quite the stir in the community. Several people in the community said Christine was well-liked and popular by everyone in town that knew her. Woelk's sister, Marilyn Ribble, said in a June 2, 2004 article of the Windsor Star that after Christine Woelk split with boyfriend Robert McQueen, Woelk was just starting to blossom again. Robert McQueen was a paramedic at the time of their split, a breakup that happened several months before Christine's death. Christine had been living with her brother John and, as previously mentioned, was about to buy a house and move out. Nearly 21 years later, this tragedy still remains an unsolved mystery. Crimes like this don't happen often in small Canadian towns, and they especially don't remain unsolved for so long. Leamington, Ontario has fluctuated around 30,000 people since the year 2000, and seems like one of those small towns where most locals know each other. As I mentioned before, Point Pelee National Park is the southernmost point of mainland Canada, which makes Leamington the southernmost town of mainland Canada, and several people that reside there own cottages on Lake Erie and only come in for the summer, on top of all the tourists it gets during the bird migration season. Its nickname is the Sun Parlour of Canada, and it was actually named after an English spa town in Warwickshire called the Royal Leamington Spa. So did Christine know her assailant, or was it a stranger from outside the area? What could have happened to Christine Woelk, and why is her death still unsolved 21 years later? The next piece of information we get from the unsolved mystery of Christine Woelk was on December 11, 2004, nearly 7 months after Woelk was reported missing and her body was found. In this statement, the local police officially ruled Christine's death a homicide, but there were no obvious signs pointing to a cause of death. The Leamington police stated that she didn't drown despite her body being found on the beach, and that there were no signs of trauma to the body. Local police constable Kevin O'Neill stated it took so long to rule Christine's death a homicide because her body was missing for a week before it was found. O'Neill said, "In terms of investigation, that's a fairly significant period of time involved." Also during these 7 months, a person of interest had been identified, yet remained unnamed. Hundreds of interviews had taken place and there were various forensic tests, yet still the police couldn't determine a cause of death. As it got closer to Christmas, a local fundraiser raised $10,000 for any information leading to the capture of Woelk's killer. Christine's ex-husband, Robert Tatemir, offered to match the $10,000. Robert Tatemir was married to Christine from 1972 to 1990. At this time, he owned a real estate business called Leamington's Future Homes and Real Estate. In this December 15th Windsor Star article, Tatemir said it was excruciating for both the daughters of Christine. He confessed that Melissa, Christine's daughter that suffers from Down syndrome, closes her door every night and still talks to her mother. Another fundraiser was held on December 20th, 2004 at the Seacliff Inn restaurant in Leamington, Ontario that doubled the reward money to $20,000 for anyone who could share information that lead to the capture of Woelk's killer. The Windsor Star stated that 200 people were at the restaurant and was packed shoulder to shoulder. 2 months later, in February of 2005, Christine's sister Marilyn summoned up the courage to go into the minivan that her sister was last seen in to shoot a TV reenactment of the Homicide for Crime Stoppers, a community program that offers a phone number for tips that could lead to solving crimes. She had hoped that by shooting this reenactment, someone would finally come forward with more information about Christine's death. The reward money was eventually up to $50,000 after the Ontario government and provincial police got involved, and by 2007, even the Michigan State Police and FBI looked into the case. After more forensic tests were done, it was concluded that Woelk's body was in the waters of Lake Erie nearly the entire time that she was missing, yet somehow her death was not caused by drowning, meaning she must have been killed before she was put in the water. But what causes even more confusion is that there were no signs of trauma to her body. This case eventually got the attention of former Toronto Star crime and police writer Cal Millar, as it was one of the very few unsolved homicide cases in the area of Leamington, Ontario. By September 13, 2009, Millar released a book called Find My Killer: Crime Stoppers, Unsolved Homicides. It was a 326-page paperback that included the details of Christine Woelk's unsolved mystery, as well as many other unsolved mysteries in Canada. Despite all of this, 5 years after Christine's death, another Christmas passed in 2009 in the small town of Leamington, Ontario, and the local police were still no closer to catching Christine's killer. After 2009, the local community had grown frustrated with the lack of results in Christine's case. How could there be no answer to this unsolved mystery in a small town such as this? Essex County, the county that Leamington resides in, was the safest county in the entire country at that point in time. And following Christine's death, the Ontario Provincial Police made a concerted effort to crack down on domestic violence in the Southern Ontario region. The trouble did not end for those connected to Christine Woelk. In October of 2010, it was reported that Robert Tatemir, Christine Woelk's ex-husband, had $103,000 defrauded from him by his 49-year-old bookkeeper, Lucy Kovacic. For 2.5 years, Kovacic made 128 fraudulent payments to herself. She'd often use company money to stay at expensive hotels and to book vacations for herself. Kovacic had worked at Robert's real estate business for 17 years, yet all of a sudden decided to go rogue around 4 years after Woelk's murder. Kovacic even, quote, held herself up as an interior decorator who was bringing in commissions from Leamington's more well-to-do residents. She created bogus invoices in their names and drafted up counterfeit checks, complete with fictitious company logos. She pretended to deposit bogus checks into the company accounts, withdrawing half of each amount as her fees, unquote. Tatemir figured out about the fraudulent activities in April of 2009, and even dumped his own retirement savings into his business to keep it afloat. The fraudulent bookkeeping required Tatemir to pay unnecessary taxes to the Canadian government. In 2010, the same year that Kovacic's fraudulent activities became public, Tatemir ran to be a member of the Municipal Council in Leamington, Ontario. One of the platforms Tatemir was running on was eliminating development charge discounts for greenhouses. He also wanted to make greenhouse owners pay for a center for greenhouse workers to socialize at, due to greenhouse workers loitering in businesses around town. Farming and greenhouses are some of the largest drivers of commerce in the Southern Ontario region of Canada, as it has one of the best climates to successfully grow produce. There's specifically a lot of tomatoes grown in this region. Heinz even had a factory here for a while. According to one report, 97.6% of the tomatoes grown in Canada are grown in Ontario, with over 80% of these tomatoes grown in Essex County, where Leamington resides. Leamington itself holds about 1,500 acres of greenhouses, so the greenhouses around the area wield an immense amount of economic power. Local greenhouse operator and tomato baron Nick Mastronardi was not too happy about Robert Tatamir's ideas for Leamington, Ontario, and this led to Mastronardi curating an email that reached 168 Leamington area residents, accusing Tatamir of an array of different suspicious and illegal activities. In this email, Mastronardi called Robert Tatamir a maggot and said that Tatamir threatens and harasses people in his business dealings. He claimed that Tatamir assaulted an elderly woman and that he cheats on his wife, further insinuating that Tatamir's wife has caught Tatamir in bed with their kid's babysitter. Mastronardi also called Tatamir a... The email also mentioned the murder of Christine Woelk and questioned the purpose behind Tatamir's offer to match the reward money to find Woelk's killer. Tatamir ended up trying to sue Mastronardi for $1.25 million due to these defamatory claims, saying that he could see people whispering about him and that he no longer feels comfortable in public. It also caused him to stop coaching hockey and to step down as a director and youth mentor at First Baptist Church in Kingsville. It would take 8 years for Tatamir's civil suit against Nick Mastronardi to go to trial. In 2018, when the suit finally went to court, Mastronardi's lawyer, Myron Shulgin, ended up grilling Robert Tatamir on the stands, accusing the business owner of complaining to the police so much that he considers himself a rat. Apparently, Tatamir had complained to the police several times about alleged drug dealers around Leamington and Kingsville. At one point, Tatamir also told the police to look into greenhouse growers for potential municipal water theft, due to a different Kingsville greenhouse operation getting charged with municipal water theft or stealing water from the city and not paying for it. Tatamir and Mastronardi's lawyer, Shulgin, argued for so long when Tatamir was on the stand that the judge even excused the jury for periods of time while Shulgin was arguing with Tatamir. The 6-member jury ended up finding Nick Mastronardi guilty of defamation and awarded Tatamir $75,000 in damages for defamation, far short of the $1.25 million that Tatamir was looking for, but it at least rewarded Tatamir some sense of justice. Despite all of this, between the years of 2010 and 2018, there was no further results in the unsolved mystery of Christine Woelk. In April of 2012, though, Woelk's ex-boyfriend, Robert McQueen, was mysteriously found dead in the Acapulco area of Mexico. He was 64 years old and vacationing in Mexico at the time of his death. And most of the rumors online seem to speculate that his death was a drug overdose and that he was dealing with drug addiction, although I can't find any real confirmation behind this. McQueen, a local paramedic, was suspected by some in the community of being Woelk's murderer, even though it seems certain greenhouse owners were hinting that Robert Tatamir had something to do with it. There is some online speculation, which should always be taken with a grain of salt, that McQueen was stealing drugs from his place of business, since he was a paramedic. And maybe one of the drugs he stole was the drug used to kill Christine Woelk. It's possible that Robert McQueen confronted Christine on the night of her disappearance, forced her to drive to the 2 cottages on Point Pelee Drive that he knew would be vacant, and then struggled with her in the car as he attempted to forcibly drug her with the drugs that would take her life. Although news articles said there was no trauma to Woelk's body when she was found in Black Willow Beach, in the book Find My Killer by reporter Cal Millar, Millar reported that there was blood spattering found in Christine's minivan. It wasn't revealed how much blood was in the van, though. So theoretically, there was a struggle when Robert McQueen drugged Christine and killed her in the van. Due to drowning being ruled out in the autopsy, it does seem most likely that Christine had died before she was thrown into the water. Point Pelee National Park closes at 7 p.m., and Christine was last seen far after its time of closing, and there were no signs of the gate at the park being breached by a car. Furthermore, Black Willow Beach is about 6.6 kilometers away from the cottages where Christine's car was found, which is far too great a distance for someone to drag a body. So after McQueen drugged her and killed her, he must have dropped Woelk's body in the waters behind the empty cottages, and her body must have been in Lake Erie for 7 days before it finally washed up on Black Willow Beach. The fact is, police have never come forward saying that any drugs were found in her system, leading to some in the community complaining that the Ontario Provincial Police are too tight-lipped when it comes to unsolved homicides. A recent report by the Bureau of Justice Statistics said that 76% of female murder victims were killed by someone they knew. As they always say, you should usually look to someone the victim knows. I would guess that the police looked into this angle and could never find enough proof to indict Robert McQueen for any crime, and that McQueen died before the case could develop further. Although, troubled people such as this usually get caught for other things, and I can't find any report of McQueen having any other dealings with the police during his life. It's also possible that he could have gotten in trouble with the police before the days of the internet, and there is no proof of it online. But the fact that Marilyn Ribble, Christine's sister, said around the time of Christine's funeral that Christine was just starting to blossom again at the time of Christine's death hints to me that Christine and Robert's relationship was not a good relationship, and that she was finally finding joy in life before that fateful night on May 18th, 2004. I'd like to emphasize that this is all speculation, and it's still a possibility that Christine Woelk's life was ended by an assailant that she didn't know at all. Leamington is a pretty small town, and whoever last saw Christine driving with an unidentified man never said that she knew Christine's passenger, but she could identify who Christine was. Unless McQueen was wearing something that obscured his face that night. As I said before, this case remains unsolved to this day, so if you have any more information about this case and for some reason have been keeping quiet about it all these years, I'm sure the police and the family would like to know about it, so that they could finally find some closure in this senseless tragedy. I'm hoping that bringing attention to this unsolved mystery again could potentially lead to a few more clues into what happened that night, so please call these numbers if you have any more information.